Neville Goddard often framed success in terms that sound conclusive, even final. In the title, "I won by trusting this silent feeling," the word "won" does not point to a public result or a competitive outcome. In his framework, winning refers to an internal resolution, the moment a question is settled within the mind. Neville described this as a silent feeling. Not emotion, not enthusiasm, not confidence, but the absence of inner resistance. The claim is precise. When the mind no longer argues with itself about a desired condition, it has reached what he considered completion. You are asked to notice that this completion is internal and immediate. What remains unresolved is whether such an internal settlement can exist without being confused with belief, optimism, or expectation. For Neville's model to function, a specific assumption must already be in place. The framework assumes that inner settlement precedes experience, not the other way around. Ordinarily, people treat experience as something that happens first and produces understanding later. Neville inverted this sequence. He suggested that the mind must internally accept a condition as resolved before it is encountered as fulfilled. In experience, this acceptance is not physical ownership or factual confirmation. It is psychological closure. You are asked to consider that within this model, the mind does not wait for evidence in order to settle. The tension lies in whether internal settlement can genuinely occur without external confirmation, or whether confirmation is always secretly required. Understanding this requires clarity about what Neville meant by feeling. In common usage, feeling refers to emotion, mood, or bodily sensation. Neville used the term differently. For him, feeling meant the sense of being in a state. It was cognitive rather than emotional. This silent feeling does not fluctuate with circumstances and does not demand expression. It is the recognition of a condition as already the case. You are asked to notice that such a feeling does not add energy or excitement. It removes inner commentary. The unresolved question is whether a state like this can remain neutral and stable without turning into expectation or emotional reinforcement over time. Once inner settlement occurs, Neville argued that a specific psychological mechanism follows. Attention reorganizes. When the mind treats something as resolved, it naturally withdraws monitoring from it. This is not unique to his philosophy. It reflects a common cognitive pattern. Unresolved matters demand attention. Resolved matters recede. Neville treated this as evidence that inner resolution is real rather than symbolic. You are asked to observe how much attention is consumed by what feels incomplete. In this framework, silence appears not as an effort, but as a byproduct of closure. The open question is whether this attentional shift changes only perception or also influences subsequent experience. Discipline plays a particular role in Neville's system, but it is often misunderstood. Discipline does not mean forcing belief or repeating affirmations. It means avoiding contradiction. Once the mind has accepted a conclusion, discipline consists of not reopening the question. You are asked to notice how often attention revisits settled matters. In Neville's view, such revisiting implies that settlement never occurred. Repetition is used only to reach settlement, not to maintain it. The tension is whether the mind can refrain from reintroducing doubt without constant self-monitoring. Neville's internal logic of causation follows directly from this structure. He did not claim that inner states mechanically produce events. Instead, he argued that inner states organize experience by determining how it is encountered. Cause and effect, in this model, are sequenced internally. When the mind assumes completion, experience is no longer filtered through anticipation. You are asked to notice how anticipation shapes interpretation. The unresolved issue is whether this describes causation itself or merely the subjective organization of events that occur independently. Expectation occupies a critical position in Neville's thinking, largely as something to be avoided. Expectation implies waiting. It preserves the sense that something is missing. Assumption, by contrast, implies closure. The silent feeling marks the point where expectation ends. Neville treated expectation as incompatible with inner settlement because it keeps attention oriented toward the future. You are asked to consider whether the mind can abandon expectation without becoming passive. The open question is whether action can continue without being driven by anticipation. Neville's ideas did not emerge in isolation. Across history, many philosophical and psychological systems have emphasized inner resolution before external clarity. Stoic practices, certain strands of idealism, and early cognitive theories all reflect similar structures. Neville's contribution was to frame this pattern in accessible psychological language. You are asked to notice the persistence of inner first models across cultures and eras. The tension remains whether this persistence reflects a stable feature of human cognition or simply a recurring explanatory preference. Perception occupies a central place in Neville's framework. He argued that experience is always filtered through assumption. Facts are encountered, but their meaning is shaped by prior conclusions. When a state is assumed, perception relaxes its search for confirmation. Reality is not denied, but it is no longer interrogated for evidence. You are asked to observe how perception behaves when an issue feels settled. The unresolved question is whether this shift changes reality itself or only one's relationship to it. Agency, within Neville's model, is defined narrowly and internally. Responsibility lies in selecting an inner conclusion rather than controlling outcomes. Action may continue, but it is no longer driven by the need to secure results. You are asked to consider whether agency feels diminished or clarified when anticipation is removed. The tension is whether internal choice alone can satisfy the human sense of responsibility. At its endpoint, Neville Goddard's framework settles into cognitive stillness. The mind is no longer oriented toward winning, waiting, or receiving. The silent feeling marks internal closure, not certainty about outcomes. Understanding this structure does not require belief or rejection. It requires only recognition of how the system is organized. What remains open is whether understanding alone alters how one relates to inner resolution, or whether it simply clarifies the mechanics of the idea.